The ballroom was full of laughter, champagne, and gold buttons catching the light. But none of that mattered in the second the room went silent. A 4-star admiral stood pointing his finger in a young woman's face, mocking her rank in front of 200 officers. She didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply rolled up her sleeve. And what he saw on her arm made his hand drop, his throat go dry, and the whole room forget how to breathe. Before we get into this story, if you believe kindness can still change the world, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This is Kindness Miracles, the home for true stories about grace, courage, and the quiet moments that remind us who we really are. Now, let's get into tonight's story. Her name was Commander Naomi Ellis, and she had earned her stripes the hard way. 12 years in the Navy, 3 deployments, and a reputation for being the calmest person in any room, even when the room was on fire. That night, she wasn't in uniform. She wore a deep emerald gown, her hair pinned up, a small gold pin on her collar that most people wouldn't even notice. She had come to the gala to honor a mentor of hers, a retired Master Chief who had once pulled her out of a burning training exercise and never let her forget she was capable of more than she believed. Admiral Frank Doyle had a different kind of reputation. He was Old Navy, the kind of man who believed rank should be worn like a crown, not carried like a responsibility. He'd spent 30 years climbing, and somewhere along the way, he'd convinced himself that the climb made him better than the people still on the ladder. When he saw Naomi standing near the entrance, laughing with the catering staff, treating them like old friends instead of hired help, something about it irritated him. He didn't know her rank. He didn't care to ask. He just assumed. "Let me guess," he said loudly enough for the cameras and phones already filming nearby to catch it, pointing a finger in her face. "Support staff. Logistics, maybe. What rank are you, sweetheart?" The officers around him laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from people who know better but stay quiet anyway. Naomi didn't laugh. She didn't get angry either. She simply looked him dead in the eye and said, "Higher than yours." The room erupted, thinking it was a joke, a punchline delivered with confidence. Doyle smirked, ready to fire back something cutting. But Naomi wasn't finished. She reached up and slowly pulled back the sleeve of her gown, revealing a tattoo along her forearm, a small emblem inked in faded green, the mark given only to graduates of an elite reconnaissance sniper program, one of the most brutal and secretive training pipelines in the entire military. Fewer than a dozen women had ever earned it. Doyle's smile disappeared. He knew that mark. He'd trained men who wore it and watched half of them wash out before they finished. His hand, still raised mid-gesture, simply fell to his side. The phone that had been filming him for a laugh was now filming something else entirely, a grown man realizing he had underestimated someone in the most public way possible. "I earned this in a tent in the mountains, sir," Naomi said quietly, no anger in her voice, just steady truth. "Same year you were being honored for a desk assignment in Norfolk. I didn't come here tonight to prove anything to you. I came to honor the man who believed in me before anyone else did. But since you asked, now you know." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, the kind of silence that happens when a room full of people realizes they've been laughing at the wrong thing. Doyle stood there, a man who had built his identity on rank, suddenly aware that rank had nothing to do with the moment unfolding in front of him. He could have doubled down. He could have made an excuse. Instead, something in him shifted. He lowered his hand fully, straightened his jacket, and did something none of them expected. He extended his hand toward her, not as a superior, but as one officer to another. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice quieter now, stripped of the bravado from moments before. "Not because of what's on your arm. Because of what I assumed before I even asked your name." Naomi shook his hand. She didn't need the apology to feel whole, she already knew who she was. But she accepted it anyway, because kindness isn't about waiting for someone to deserve it. It's about giving people the chance to become better than the moment they just showed you. The video of that night spread far beyond the ballroom. Not because of the tattoo, and not because of the embarrassment on the Admiral's face, but because of what happened after. People didn't remember the mockery. They remembered the grace. They remembered a woman who didn't need to shout to be heard, and a man who was humbled enough to change course in front of everyone who mattered to him. Doyle retired 18 months later. At his farewell dinner, he asked Naomi to speak. She stood at the podium and told the room that real strength isn't about the loudest voice or the highest rank. It's about who you choose to be when nobody expects you to be kind, especially to someone you underestimated. That night in the Golden Ballroom taught everyone watching the same lesson. Judge quietly, and you may judge wrong. But choose kindness, even after a mistake, and you might just change the whole room. Because sometimes the greatest rank a person can hold isn't stitched on a shoulder. It's carried in how they treat the people they almost overlooked.